you can see my screen. Maybe I can just get a thumbs up from the EdApp staff if everything's going well.
You're all good.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. My name is Dave Chalmers. I'm the head of product for EdApp, and I'm super excited to be with you today to go through a bit of a product update. I'm joined by the wonderful Molly Phelan. Molly, maybe you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Happy to. Thanks so much, Dave. Hi, everyone. I'm the lead client success manager here out of our New York region for EdApp, and I'm really excited to see what you have to present today, Dave. We've got so many great new features coming out.
Great stuff. And of course, we also have our other colleagues on chat to help answer questions. So just for everyone who's watching, effectively, what we're going to do is we're going to go through our agenda today. We're going to talk about stuff that's been recently released and things that are coming soon. And I'm going to switch between this presentation and the admin portal and show you off some of those new features. At all times, please just throw some questions into the chat, and the team will be able to answer it, or we'll take, natural breaks through each part of the presentation to kind of pause and answer any questions that you might have. But don't worry, we've got plenty of questions at the end to get through. Plenty of time at the end for questions also. So like I say, we've got a decent agenda, so I'm going to get cracking. First thing, we're going to talk about some fantastic functionality that's been recently released. And it's probably fair to say that we've focused on improving blended training, specifically in person over the last few months or so. And we've particularly been trying to support frontline and deskless workers in their training journey. And the first thing that we're starting with is in-person training. So a lot of our customers have told us about, not all their staff have access or are allowed to use a device. Now, sometimes that can be the environment that they work in. Perhaps it's not safe for them to have devices, or they simply don't have devices to use for training. And so they typically get trained in, a meeting room in front of a laptop or a projector. And that training usually has some sort of compliance element to it, but it's also recorded with like paper sign-in sheets or Excel. And so that led us to see if we could build something a bit better. And that's why we're introducing group training. Now, group training is a way for you to deliver and track in-person training alongside your micro-learning. So how does it work? Well, essentially, it's pretty straightforward. You can enable group training on any of the courses. Now, that could be courses you created yourself. It could be courses that you've imported from our very extensive courseware library that covers a variety of topics. Or it could be something a course that you created from converting it from PowerPoint and then edited it into EdApp micro-learning. Then you present that training, that courseware, and it's all very engaging because it's built on top of EdApp templates. So it's engaging training, better than any PowerPoint to your audience. And then best of all, it records the attendance of everyone that's at that in-person session, and then records completion against them. So it takes all that stuff and puts it into one system so that you can keep your training records complete. So it wouldn't be a product update if we didn't do a bit of a demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into our LMS right now. And what you're seeing right now is effectively, normally you would see this courses tab, and this is where all the courseware for your instance is. But we've added in a new facilitate menu item where you'll find group training. And inside of group training are all the courses that have been enabled. So a couple of these are ones that have come from our library that we've then edited to make the work from group training. And all you need to do to start a group training session is click the Start Session button. And from here, your facilitators or presenters can then present the content in the course. And at any point during the session, now they can do this at the start or at the end, you can start adding attendees. And so For the attendees, you can simply just search for the people and take a normal roll call and go through and add folk in. Or trying to remember who I added in now. Or if you do allow devices, one of the other things that you can do is they can use the QR code on the left-hand side there. And I'm just going to grab my device here. And they can scan. And it will actually sign them in automatically. There's me, Willie Miller, in the session. And then once you've completed the session, now you can go back and add more people in if perhaps they're late attending the session. But once they're finished, you can click end session, and then that will mark those 4 attendees of having completed that course, and you'll have a record of their training. If you wanted to see all of the people that have completed those in-person sessions, dead simple, just go in and view the course report for that particular course, and you can see not only the times and dates that they've completed the training, but who the facilitator was at that point in time, and you can see everyone that's completed there. Now you can export that for your records if you need to, but it's probably good to mention at this point, because this runs on top of normal EdApp infrastructure, this is also captured in your analytics. And you can see in the analytics who's done it individually or who's done it group training themselves. So it's a fantastic feature that we're seeing a lot of people get lots of use out of that wouldn't normally use an LMS. And so lots of different types of use cases that we're seeing come up. I mentioned toolbox talks, safety talks that are quite popular in manufacturing and construction. But also in retail, we're seeing folk use it for new product launches and doing upsell and cross-sell skills in their staff. And in the hospitality sector, we're seeing a lot of people using it for other new menu or service trainings. Now that's available now on all paid plans and enterprise plans. And there's some really great functionality in there for people who need in-person training. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pause for a minute, and we'll just see if there are any questions that folks might have. And I'll just give it a minute or so. And then if not, we'll move on to the next one. Do we have anything?
Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a great question from Michael, which Summer answered beautifully, but just so everyone can hear. If you enable group training for a course, can the learners still complete the course on their own individually as well?
Yes, they can. So if you're in a bit of a mixed mode where there's both organized in-person sessions and people that are able to do it on their device, they can complete it in either way. It will, as I mentioned, it will note in the back end, in the analytics, which mode they've taken it, whether they've taken it individually or in a group training session. Great. Was there any other ones before we move on, Molly?
None so far. Thanks, Dave.
Great stuff. We'll keep the questions coming, and we'll try our best to get answers in each of these little pauses. So moving on from in-person training is in-person assessment. And again, a lot of our customers have told us about, for some roles, assessment has to be done in person. You know, it's not sufficient enough for them to do self-paced learning, do some sort of online quiz or assessment, and then be considered done. Competency has to be verified. You know, the types of tasks that they're completing need to be observed. And what we've also heard is a lot of these assessments, if they're done in any system, it tends to be different types of systems or different forms that are filled out. And so they tend to be disparate systems as well. And the last thing that we heard in our research was about how the quality of assessments differed between assessors. So some assessors were more stringent in the way that they assessed certain tasks, whereas others weren't. And so that led us into an extremely popular feature that we call practical assessments. And so practical assessments effectively allows you to capture those assessments as part of the learner's journey. And it keeps both your self-paced learning, self-paced training, so micro-learning, for example, and practical assessments combined into one system. And that allows you to then standardize and then securely capture the assessments all in one place. So again, how does it work? So a practical assessment is effectively a new lesson type in EdApp. And what you can do is you can convert your existing forms that you have for assessments, if you have any, into a practical assessment checklist. Now, this, because it's part of a lesson type, it means you can either have it as part of a journey, so you can have lots of self-paced, conceptual or theory-based training first, and then you can have an assessment at the end, or you could have an assessment by itself in a course. Now, we have a fantastic, and a lot of them are joining us on this call today, a fantastic customer success team. So they can help you convert some of your existing assessments into practical assessments as well. Once that's published as part of a course, and the learner then starts taking their course, they'll then reach a point where they'll see a QR code. That's what you see in that middle screen there. Now, once they reach that point, that's where they're informed, right now you need to go to your assessor to be assessed on this particular skill or competency. Now, that QR code is unique to that learner, it's unique to that lesson, and obviously that course as well. And so when it's scanned that by the assessor, that will then launch the assessment checklist that you've built, and they can go ahead and then start assessing whatever task it is of that learner. Once complete, not only will that mark the lesson as complete and thereby capture it in the LMS itself, but it will also produce a PDF of the assessment. So you've got both a copy of the completion of the course or lesson and the assessment that they took, along with any sorts of comments that they might have made. So this is the point where I would love to give you a live demo of this, but unfortunately, I'm a massive geek and I've updated my my iPhone to iOS beta, one of the beta ones, and it won't display on my MacBook. But not to worry, I have recorded a video, so I'm going to talk you through that video now. So we'll just go on to the next slide, and hopefully this plays well. So here's me as an assessor, and effectively, and you'll have to take this mock-up as it is. Here's me scanning the QR code of one of my learners I'm about to assess. I'm already logged in, and it takes me straight to my assessment for this particular individual, Willie Miller. And we're assessing Willie today on his cappuccino skills, his ability to make a cappuccino. This is not based on any popular coffee chain at all. And you can see me going through filling out the form as I rate Willie on his ability to create that coffee. I can upload videos or images of him doing so. I haven't done it in the demo here. What we have done is just submitted the assessment, added a bit of feedback, and then in this case, I think he's done a great job. So we've passed him. And what then happens now is the system generates a PDF copy of this assessment. It marks him as complete in the system, and Willie then gets a notification that is now complete for that course. Now, what I wanted to do as part of this demo was I'm going to show you a little bit of how that's put together in the system. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump back over into the LMS. And here we have the courseware screen. And in fact, this is the course that Willie was just assessed on. If I go and edit this, I just want you to for those of you that are familiar with EdApp and those that perhaps aren't, this is what a course looks like. And inside the course are a series of lessons. Now, in these lessons, I've actually structured it so that a lot of this is the self-paced learning of how to make various different types of coffees. And each of these is a lesson that Willie or any of my staff could then take to learn how to make those coffees themselves. And then, as I mentioned, it's part of the learner's journey. At the end, there's then a series of assessments that can be taken, the practical assessments, where I observe them showing the skills that they've learned, both from self-paced and on-the-job training, and then I can make my assessment. Now, if I wanted to edit that assessment, it's super simple. I can just edit the content of the assessment, and then inside of here, you can see that assessment you saw in the video. On the left-hand side, again, it's very simple to change or create your own assessment just by dragging and dropping things into the checklist builder. So if I wanted to add another video in here, I could just add it in, give it some descriptions and so on, and save that. There's lots of different field types, whether it be rating systems, radio buttons, drop downs, all of that sort of stuff that you expect from any sort of form builder or checklist builder. And some really good additions as well that we've put in recently. I mentioned video. The most recent one in the last couple of weeks was signature. So we'd had a bit of feedback from assessors and perhaps more compliance-based assessments where they needed a sign-off and actually sign-offs from the assessor and sign-offs from the person being assessed as well to say, yep, they found that that was a fair assessment. So there's lots of stuff that you can do in there with practical assessments. There's more and more work that we're doing with practical assessments to make it even better. So lots of feedback if you've used it already or even questions that you might have around it. One of the first questions I tend to get asked though is, what if the learner doesn't have their QR code? And that does happen, of course. They don't always have devices on them, but that's okay, because I'm just going to move over into this next part. And this is again in that facilitate menu that I mentioned before. There's in here practical assessments, and inside of here all the practical assessments that I can access. Here's this cappuccino skills ones that I mentioned before. And as an assessor, I can go in and I can find particular individuals I want to make sure do their assessment. I can then trigger the assessment and start the practical assessment from here without any QR code. Equally, another question I get asked is if we've got assessments that might take, they're a bit more, let's say, complex than coffee making, and might take a few days or require several observations of someone performing the task in order to pass it. Well, that's no problem. As you can see here, we've got assessments that can be resumed, so you can save an assessment at any point without submitting it, and so you can build that up over a series of days or a series of observations, whatever it may be. So there's lots of great functionality in this. I think it's only been released for about 5 weeks, and we've had several thousand of these assessment checklists made. So it's a very popular feature, and people are using it for lots of different stuff. So everything from safety procedures, equipment operation like tag out, lockout on certain plant equipment, in retail for merchandising displays or customer service, in hospitality for, as you can imagine, cleaning standards, food safety, also opening and closing of stores, those types of procedures for trainee managers, and also interestingly in sales training for stuff like call shadowing and negotiation skills and so on. So there's some really fantastic use cases for practical assessments, and there's more things that we're working on to make this even better. So what I might do is I might pause for a second, and Molly, I'm going to hand over to you and ask if there's any questions about practical assessments we can maybe dive into.
That would be great. Thanks, Dave. We have a couple great questions. One of them that just came through was a little bit more information on who can conduct the assessments and do they need an EdApp account?
Yep. Okay. Great question. So yes, they do need an EdApp account. Although I didn't show it in the demo video there, you would have to log in to make sure that you can perform those assessments. And inside of EdApp, they're given a specific role, and that role is facilitator. And so you have to have an EdApp account, and you have to be a facilitator in order to perform the practical assessments. As you can imagine, we don't want people to just be able to scan that code and pass other people at will. Practical assessments also gets used it's used by the International Cricket Commission for basically assessing their new cricket coaches. And so you wouldn't want someone else to assess and then certify someone as a cricket coach, as an example. So yeah, you need an account, and you need the role of a facilitator inside of EdApp.
That's great. Thanks, Dave. We have another good question from Alan, and he's wondering if you can allow uploading of audio files into the assessment.
Oh, great question. So what we have is we've got the ability to add in image files and video files right now. We have been asked for other types of documentation to be added in, and those will be coming soon. So audio would be one of those things that we would probably add in. I would love to know, and maybe you can just post in the comments, Alan, what you're using audio for. That would be a great bit of feedback for us, but audio would be coming alongside other file types as well.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And that's it for questions so far.
Great stuff. Okay, fantastic. Well, what we'll maybe do now is we're going to switch gears into upcoming functionality. Our focus here is actually about making compliance easier to manage. You can see with a lot of the functionality that I've just demonstrated that there is a certain amount of our focus that is on frontline and deskless workers. And a lot of that has led us into, improving what we're doing for compliance. And we've heard from lots of customers about how much effort's involved managing and maintaining compliance across a workforce. And we've also heard that when there's a lot of effort and manual involvement, that's where risk creeps in. So an example would be, having to chase people up to make sure that certain training is done, or when training is not done, identifying who hasn't done it, and just maintaining that ongoing effort across, a large workforce or many different types of compliance training. And so effectively, our vision for compliance is to flip that effort. We want to automate where we can, and then alert you where you need to take action. So some of the upcoming features that I'm about to talk about are laying down some of the foundations to get us closer to that vision. And so I'm going to kick off with the first one, which is relative due dates. Now, relative due dates might actually sound like a very small feature in itself, but it's actually very powerful. So currently in EdApp, you can set a due date for a course, but it's an absolute date. And so that's useful if you've got a set of learners that are all joining in the same cohort, and you can make sure that it's done by a particular time. But of course, you might have ongoing different cohorts coming into the business that are actually going to start at different times. So therefore, it can be quite cumbersome to try and manage dates like that if you don't have something that's relative to when they start the courseware, when they're enrolled in the courseware, in the training. And so effectively with relative due dates, you can define how long it's going to be before something is due after they're enrolled. And then when that due date comes around, they'll get a reminder that the due date is coming. They'll get a reminder when the due date has passed, and they'll get following reminders until they complete the courseware. Now, the reason that I mentioned this one is because this is a stepping stone into essentially escalation reporting. Because not only will we notify the learner that the courseware is due, at a certain point that'll get escalated to their manager, which is defined inside the system. And we'll have an exception report of people who haven't completed courseware that should have done. So it's a small feature, but it unlocks an awful lot for the compliance journey that we're going down. And so there's a really exciting one. And when I say this one's coming soon, the beta for this, so those of you that are current customers, please let our wonderful support staff know. You can join the beta for this and get this turned on. I think it's as early as next week. So, and that should be released at the start of September. So that one's coming very, very soon. Moving slightly on from relative due dates is recurring certification. And so in recurring certification, what you'll be able to do is effectively set an expiry period for any of the courses that you have on EdApp. And based upon either when the learners first passed them or when you published the course, and you can choose between the two, you can set that expiry period. So maybe that's 12 months, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 months, depending on what type of courseware that is. And then you can set for that to be retaken. And what that'll do is it will reset the completion for that particular course. And now effectively you can set and forget certification and compliance for that as well for that particular course. You can also set a period of when that retake period should start. So that's almost like setting a reverse due date. So you can say 30 days before expiry, make it available, make the learner aware that they have to retake that within this 30 days in order to maintain either certification or compliance in this case. And again, they'll get reminders when the expiry is coming up and when the due date is passed for expiry. And again, as I mentioned, this then forms part of that exception reporting. If they miss that due date, the managers of their group will be informed in this automated exception report, so you know who to chase up for either getting close to missing compliance dates or having missed compliance dates for certification. And of course, all the other functionality of EDAP also sits on top of that. So if you want to generate certificates, like actual certificates, you'll get a new certificate for the next time that you take that course. And before I mentioned things like practical assessments. So if you had a practical assessment that had to be taken every, say, 3 months or so, which can happen in some environments, you can set recurring certification on the course that the practical assessment is part of. They can retake the self-paced material that they have to, as well as be re-observed as part of a practical assessment. And so that you can get that ongoing compliance and that ongoing capture of competency. So it's a fantastic feature. We can't wait till that one comes out. There's probably a couple of key questions, and I'm going to pause after this one because I think every time I presented this particular feature, this is usually when the chat or the Q&A explodes. So I'm going to give it a bit of time. I suppose one of the first things that I want to talk about, though, is the certification will be based upon the version of the course. So if you have, version 1.1.0 for a course, then if you change it, that's going to become version 1.1 of that course. Now, it'll be up to you whether you want to reset completion for everyone at the point of when you publish a new version of the course, or when they are recertified in the course, that they'll take this 1.1 version of the course. So there will be versioning inherent inside this feature, which means that you'll be able to say, with certainty that they took this version of the course in this compliance period and this version of the course in either the upcoming or the existing compliance period. So a really, really powerful feature that's going to help us, as I mentioned, in that vision of trying to set and forget compliance. Forget's perhaps not the best term when it comes to compliance, but essentially have less effort in managing it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause momentarily there, Molly, and see if there's any questions around certification and recurring certification.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, absolutely. We have a great question from Chris about relative due dates. Just wanted a little more information on what those notifications look like. Are they push or email? And he's wondering if you can customize them as well.
Oh, what a great question. Fantastic. And sorry if I seem a little bit distracted. All the lights in the building have now just gone off. This is where they keep product people. It's in the dark. That's not true. Yeah, great question, Chris. So effectively, the first set of notifications that you're going to see for relative due dates, which, as I say, is very soon, is going to be email and push. We will be doing some more in notifications in the not too distant future. And so what we're going to be doing there is we're going to have the ability to have in-app notifications, so a notification stream. There's going to be email, there's going to be push, and then we're going to be introducing in the not too distant future SMS as well, and potentially other channels too. So there'll be a lot of stuff that you can do in there. The push notifications that you get inside of EDAP right now, you get the automated, if you like, system generated ones, and you also get the ability to send customized push notifications as well. So there's a bit of a choice between the two of them. The first notifications for relative due dates, though, will be system generated and won't be customizable. But I'd love to hear more about the types of customizations that you're looking for. So maybe either drop a message in the channel and we can respond to that, or I'm going to hand out my email address later on and we can have a chat about that too.
Thanks, Dave. And we don't have any questions on recurring certification just yet, but I actually got a great one from a customer recently on a call. And they were wondering what it looked like when the course was represented to the learner and how that affected their analytics.
Yeah, great question. Okay, so effectively, when you're inside the learner's experience, a course that's completed will have a completed flag on it. It'll be in a completed state. When recurring certification happens, that progress is going to be reset for effectively this certification period. So once you expire past, let's say it's 12 months, it will then reset completion for that course attempt and for that certification period. So what that means is in analytics, what you're going to see, and I'm sorry, I should have probably had an analytics screenshot in here, but what you're going to see is you're going to see the version of the course, and you're going to see how many attempts, i.e. that they've done, completions that they've done, so that you can see what version and what completion they're at. And then you're going to see their current state for this expiry period. And so if that's incomplete, you'll see that they're currently incomplete for that course. So I suppose the easiest way to say this is you'll be able to see who is incomplete for a course for a current period. And if, let's say, they haven't completed it from before, they will be overdue from the previous period. So effectively, what you're looking for is you only ever want to see people that are getting close to expiry and complete. Everything else will be stuff that you'll want to be chasing up, because they'll effectively mean that they haven't completed the course. We're within the designated period. I hope that makes sense.
It does. That's great. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. No
And
worries.
those are all the questions we have so far.
Okay.
Actually, we did just have one come through from Claude.
Mhm.
She's wondering if there will be any data points in reporting or the API to help identify when new attempts on a course are taken as a result of the recertification.
Yeah, great question. So I probably can't give technical specifics at this point. That'll come a bit closer as we get to releasing it and what changes are happening in the API. But you will know what, if you like, what completion period, or sorry, if it's a recurring certification enabled course, you'll know that what period they're in and what course completion they should be in. So if, let's say, you've taken the course already once, and then you're going into your next certification period, you'll be able to know that this is the second certification period, and you'll be able to say that they're due to complete a course. So how that is going to come out in the API, I can't tell you technically just yet. That I'll leave that to the teams who are much more clever than I for how that will actually come out. But we'll be sharing that as we get closer to release of the feature. And again, we will have a beta period for recurring certification. And I encourage you to join that, especially if there's things around the API that you're very interested in.
Thanks, Dave. That's great. And those are all the questions we have for now.
Cool, no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump on into probably the last upcoming feature that I want to talk about, which is course reviewing. And so effectively, we've heard from quite a few people that, for some courseware, the changes can go through relatively easily and can be published to your workforce straight away. But for some types of courseware, that needs to go through subject matter experts. It could be legal, it could be a compliance check, it could be a branding check, it could be lots of different things that involve essentially feedback from lots of different parties. Now, to date, that's often been handled with, a PDF that goes out, and people might mark that up. Now, the problem with that is that, of course, they're not really seeing the content as it's delivered, and so what that means is, sometimes the interactions or the games that you can create inside of EdApp aren't best represented. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reduce the time to roll out content by gathering and resolving all that feedback in one place and getting all parties to collaborate on the same content. And so that's why we're introducing course reviewing. Now, this is actually about to start development, and I've had permission from the designers to share the click-throughs that they're working on right now. And again, we'll have a great beta period for people that are interested in joining this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly take you through how that's going to work. And again, some of these are wireframes and they will change as we get closer to launch, but I thought I'd share that with you now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into a different tool over here. It's called Figma. That's where the designers put all their expertise into. And on a course now, you'll be able to actually send a course for review. So as an author, you'll be able to send that to the various different parties that need to review the courseware. And in here, you can see what the review tool looks like. So we've got, the lessons on the left-hand side, a preview in the middle that you can change to different sizes, and then the ability to then share that with other parties. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you sharing it to either internal or external people, and we'll be able to send an invite. They'll get an invite, and that invite will then tell them that they've got a course to review, in this case from Joseph, and then we can send that invite away. The reviewer, now depending on whether they're internal or external, will be asked to register, and that's so that we've got their name and we know to send emails to if there's comments that need to be discussed, or when their comments are being resolved. And so there'll be a registration step. And then once they've gone through the registration step, they'll be able to start adding comments in and mentioning people that are in the comment thread. If there's multiple stakeholders that need to pay attention to something, or they want to tag specific individuals, and they can keep going through that and adding in more and more comments as they go. Now, this is specific to the slide within, if you're familiar with EdApp. EdApp basically works where you've got a course. Inside that course are lessons, and inside those lessons are fantastic slide templates. And so this will allow you to comment at the slide level within a lesson. So you'll be able to see exactly what slide each comment relates to, and you'll be able to bubble these up in different ways, seeing all the slides, all the mentions where you've been mentioned, and also the various different slide navigation, and seeing how many comments are in each one. Obviously, people will go ahead and finish their reviews, and they can send notifications and make other people aware that they're finished. And then once that comes back to the author, I'm just going to jump over to the author now. They'll get a notification that the reviews have been completed, and they can go in and start looking at those comments and start essentially either replying to any of the comments that are there if there's clarification that's needed, or resolving the comments and getting to the point of getting this course ready to be published. So this functionality is, as I said, is just about to start development. I would predict that by the end of September, start of October, we should have a beta program that's launched, and people will be able to join that and see what we're doing with course reviewing and how it can help them get content reviewed quickly. So we've heard from lots of different customers where, this is a vital step in the process, because what we're training people on can be different, and it can be well regulated, or indeed it could be dangerous if we're telling people the wrong thing in training. So a great tool that gathers all that feedback together, gives you a bit of a chain of an audit chain as well, to say what has been asked for, what has been changed, what's been resolved. It's tied together with the course version, and just allows you to roll that content out quicker and with more confidence than before. So really excited about that change. And like I say, we'll be looking for beta customers for that as well. So that probably takes me to the end of the presentation of the stuff that we've both released and the stuff that is upcoming. I'm sorry that I'm in a very dark environment here. It's very moody on my side. Yeah, I just want to open up to any questions that we might have, or indeed, there's my email down at the bottom, and I'll get someone to add that into the chat as well. You can feel free. I love talking to customers at all points. So, feel free to reach out and start a dialogue with me about any of the stuff you've seen today, or indeed any other feedback that you might have for us as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave. And we have a couple great questions in the chat right now. Regarding the review tool, Nita was wondering, do the reviewers have to have a monthly license in EdApp? She's thinking that some may only need to review a couple of courses a year, or maybe external consultants who use the app internally.
Yeah, great question. So honestly, from our point of view, we don't charge you for people that are in the admin tool. You could have as many admins and authors as you need. We think the value is in training your staff, and that's where we charge from how many people we've trained in a month. So it won't cost anything for you to have other reviewers. And right now, the way that we're doing that is we're making sure that it's secure by making them create an EdApp account, but they'll only need that for the reviewing, and they'll only need to set it up once. Thereafter, every time they get pinged with a new course, they'll just get a new notification and they'll go straight in. We are looking at, perhaps in somewhere in the beta period, we might look at what we call an anonymous reviewer, which doesn't have any login, but there's certain use cases where that's not appropriate. So we're just trying to figure out whether that's a good choice for the review tool or not. So again, feedback is appreciated, but you don't have to pay for reviewers.
Thank you, Dave. Great answer. And we have a question from Jamie. Hi, Jamie. For course reviewing, will you have to only use the user register, or will you be able to invite users who have current accounts to review courses?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the step that I showed you is literally just if that is an external or an email that is not recognized by the system. Otherwise, you'll just be able to pick people in the admin tool and then invite them into reviewing the course. So they won't need to register every time. No, we'll have those details already.
Excellent. And Chris actually has a question on the new UI of the platform. He really likes it. He likes how the courses are now displayed with the titles of the course under the course tile rather than overlaid on the image, which we love. But he's just wondering, is there a chance it will revert back to the old look as they're currently re-optimizing their images for those titles?
Great question. So no, I mean, the path that we're going down now is probably, if I'm being honest, it's a path that comes from having learned a few times now that it is a very difficult concept to try and get text on top of imagery and make it work really, really well. And so the current model that you see where you have course imagery and text and description underneath, that's going to remain. I don't think you're going to have to change that at all. That's the direction that we're heading down for all of our course cards throughout the platform. And thanks for the comments on the new look of EdApp. We think it's much. It matches our brand a lot better. It's a lot brighter everywhere. Brings a lot of space and room. So I'll be sure to pass on the good feedback to the designers. They'll love that.
Great. And one last question on the UI, actually, another great question from Claude. They're wondering if there will be a dark mode available in the future for the UI.
I'll have to plead the fifth. There may be different changes that we do with the UI, certainly from the learner's point of view as well, which it's not uncommon for folks to have a dark mode that is reflected in the learner's experience. Claude, I can't give you a straight answer on that right now, I'm afraid. But just watch the space. I think there's probably some things up our sleeve, perhaps not this year, but maybe early into next year.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And I think that might be it for questions on the new features. I see a couple other questions in the chat that are being answered by our team. So yeah, I think that concludes the questions.
Well, great stuff. Just as a reminder, folks, please, if you've got any questions or feedback from me or from my team, feel free to reach out either to the wonderful success team and account management team that you've been chatting with today, or just reach out to my email address. But otherwise, thanks for your time today. Really enjoyed it. Bit weird that all the lights have gone out, but we'll take that as moody and atmospheric. And thanks very much for your time. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.